Súdán.
Capam go bhfuil sé dearfach go bhfuil an tábhair seo Cusaí Gaeilge á phlé againn inniu de sac an rialtas seo. Is mór an trua é, agus is cúisnáir é, go bhfuil Gaeilge bhéile ar leabhart againn inniu. Go mbíonn gnó an dóil ag leanúint trí bhéile in anad Gaeilge, agus cinnte cúisnáir é, nach bhfuil Gaeilge á leabhart againn, beag nach nó go bhliaon tar éis de sac an stáid seo. We know the historical reasons why we speak English, the effect of the famine, the migration, when so many Irish speakers died or left. We know about the education system under Britain, which downgraded Irish, growing perception that speaking Irish would not enhance one's job prospects, and that English was the language of progress. And yet, when we think of the Easter Rising and the War of Independence, the leaders and the members who spoke Irish and had a great love of Irish, and yet Irish is not the language of the majority of the population. Government after government, since the foundation of the state, have failed when it comes to encouraging and spreading our use of the language. Agus an faibatá goin inis, níl ein fiaus tagcha ar an ábhar seo. Agus inis, níl aíonn ach mionlach san tír seo an Gaeilge. An difriocht, rih an gurta mór, bhí Gaeilge ag beagnach 7 milliún daoine mar an céad teanga. Agus inis, níos an lú ná 20 míle ag caint 3 Gaeilge gach lá. So how do we start to bring about an improvement? Well, we start young. Ceapan ba chóir go méid gach bunscoil mar Gaelscoil, I gcóir ceithre nó 5 bliain ar a laiad, agus ansin bheith gach dulta scoile in our labhairt as Gaeilge. And another language could be introduced for the final 2 to 3 years of primary school, because we know children are like sponges at that stage. And the common denominator with all languages is that language has to be taught to be spoken. The system we have now, children will learn Irish for 8 years in primary school, 3 to 6 years in second level, and they will still leave the education system not able to conduct a conversation in Irish. And even more disappointedly, many not liking Irish and not having any pride in Irish as being part of our cultural identity. Cinnte tá job sarwa a dhéanamh ag na Gaelscoileanna, agus go háirithe na cín atá lasmo den Gaeltacht. Agus rud eile dearfach tá is a gcuin go bhfuil sim ag hismóthirí go méid níos mó Gaelscoileanna a gcuin. I think we really have to look at the way Irish is taught in our schools. Ceartar go méid na rangan a beover agus practicúil, and the emphasis again has to be on spoken Irish. And I think there has to be a conversation with the Minister for Education on this. Otherwise, I mean, why bother teaching Irish? And as somebody who loves Irish, I'm saying that unless we're going to take it seriously, we should throw our hat at it at this stage. I believe it's more beneficial to have the majority with a love of the language able to speak it, rather than a few being super competent in Irish and the majority then left with a distaste for the language. December 2010, we had the 20-year strategy for the Irish language. And I have to ask, well, what has been achieved in the first 5 years? It's strong on rhetoric, it's strong on aspirations, but very weak on implementation and action. OK, there were specific structures that were setting up a number of committees, but unless there's implementation, well, then committees are mere talking shops. It speaks volumes, unfortunately, that in the last government, the minister you were appointed as minister with the responsibility for the Gaeltacht, and you could not conduct business regarding the Gaeltacht in the Irish language with people. And I want to acknowledge the efforts that Minister McHugh made to make up for that shortfall. But you have to ask, how serious is it a minister for the Gaeltacht whose first language is not Irish? Yesterday, chaired by Deputy Peadar Tobin, I was in the AV room, presentation from Maureen On Gaeilge, and they did highlight various positive signs from a number of surveys, that 2 million of us at least have some level of Irish, that 61% agree with additional support for the language for the state, and also a need for services through Irish to be in existence for those who want those services, 70%. And as we are trying to provide services in their own language for our new communities, I think there is a responsibility on us to provide those services in Irish for those who want them. There were other points emerged from the surveys, like bilingual labelling and the names of government agencies and semi-state bodies to be in Irish. All of that, to bring all of that about, it requires leadership, it requires commitment, it requires passion, and it also needs investment. After that, it requires monitoring of the implementation of the strategy. Now, I know this issue is competing with a wide range of issues at cabinet level, but this has gone on far too long. If we're serious about spreading Irish as a spoken language throughout the country and not confined to Gaeltacht areas. I'm struck by the widespread illiteracy rates in Cuba before the revolution. And when the revolutionaries took over, there was a massive campaign to address this, and they actually have a literacy museum in Havana. Hundreds of volunteer teachers went out throughout the country, and within a few years there was an amazing change with phenomenal improvement. And I'm just wondering if we could have a similar system in Ireland. We have an example from our neighbours in Wales. And if you travel in Wales, it's more likely that you will hear Welsh being spoken, and yet it's a minority UK language. Within their education system, I think the approach seems to be more to do with the language as part of their cultural identity. There's a Welsh language commissioner who examines legislation from the point of the implications for the language. Part of the surveys that we heard about yesterday, over 6 in 10 agree that there are not many opportunities for young people to use their Irish outside of the formal education system. So how do we bring about a change to address that? And I do think young people have to be involved and listen to their practical solutions. We know that we're not having a senior minister for the Irish language, as had been looked for, but I do hope we will see an Oireachtas committee for the Irish language, Gaeltacht and the islands. They are 3 areas that are under threat, not quite with extinction, but certainly under severe pressure in relation to viability and sustainability. The committee has to take on monitoring the implementation of the strategy, to ensure services through Irish, and to look at legislation so that the language is protected. And it's vital that the Minister for Education will support educational measures in relation to the language. Bhí an tálam nuair a bhí sé freastal ar manscoil go raibh Maureen On Gaeilge agam a sprág onam agus imachárde grá don teanga. Is teanga álín í an Gaeilge, an litríocht, don filíocht, an ceol, agus ba bhailim ahananta a thuirt don obair atá a dhéanamh, obair úntaach atá a dhéanamh ag tíochtí chathair, radio na Gaeltachta, radio na Lifa im Lá Clia, agus na clár trí Gaeilge ar na stáisiún eile. Ceapim nach bhfuil sé ród dearfach nach bhfuil sé ród déanaach an teanga a bháil, ach tá aspa Jeffra ann leis an obair seo. Breathann sé ar an tomatas don Gaeilge agus inéistíocht san Gaeilge. Gur maith.